Hey, y'all. On today's podcast, I'm going to talk about the art of making hush puppies. And of course, with a hush puppy, you got to have some fried fish. Well, let's get started on the hush puppy. My Aunt Peggy actually taught me how to make a wonderful hush puppy years ago. And naturally, I fry everything in peanut oil, y'all. And I'm going to start with 1.5 cups of self-rising cornmeal and 1/2 cup of self-rising flour. And I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Not much salt, because when we're using self-rising products, they also contain salt. So you don't want to overdo it with the salt. And I just take a whisk. Yes, I just take a whisk and I whisk my dry ingredients together. And I'll tell you, I have been using the same cornmeal since I was a very young bride. And I use nothing but Alabama King, the best cornmeal around. If you want the flavor of a true country southern cornbread or hush puppy, there's nothing any better than Alabama King. So I have, excuse me, I keep dropping my glasses, y'all. So I'm gonna add about 1 cup of buttermilk, and I'm gonna do this rather slowly. I'm gonna add 1 egg that's been lightly beaten. And the most important ingredient to a wonderful hush puppy, though, y'all, besides the buttermilk and the Alabama King, is an onion. And I put almost as much chopped onion as I do cornmeal. So, heavy on the onions. Now, you'll want to slowly add your buttermilk until it's like real thick pancake batter. Because if you put too much buttermilk, the hush puppies won't hold together. And I've got a special bowl at my house that someone sent me, and it's a hush puppy bowl. And the bowl part, you mix your hush puppies in. And then it's got a little miniature bowl made into the side to hold your water. And it's real important that when you're making hush puppies, in order to get them off the spoon and into the fryer, you must dip that spoon in cold water after every drop. And that cold water allows the hush puppies to slide right off into your hot oil. So, here's another little trick about hush puppies. They get very heavy on one side very quickly. So as soon as you finish dropping them, you'll want to take your slotted spoon and turn every one of those hush puppies rather quickly so they can get a balance. Because once they get heavy on one side, it's so hard to get them to flip over so that they can brown on the other side. And we'll fry these until they're nice and golden brown. And I always take one out and break it open to test it. And so I won't make my hush puppies real big. I'll use like a normal teaspoon, do like a heaping teaspoon for each hush puppy. And sometimes, y'all, Michael loves hot stuff, so sometimes I'll dice up fresh jalapenos and put in there. Or you can just use the pickled jalapenos as well. But either way, practice makes perfect on this southern delicacy. And, it got its name from, they said years ago, you'd have your fish fries outside. And, of course, all the dogs would be jumping around and barking and wanting whatever was being cooked. So they'd throw the cheaper part of the meal to the dogs, which is the hush puppy. And they'd say, "Hush, puppy." So that's how this wonderful bread got its name. I'm going to get started making our hush puppies. Now, I like to put a good bit of flour In my hush puppies, some people won't put but like a tablespoon or two, but I use more than that because, you know, I just prefer flour over meal. Now, I'm going to start by putting 1 cup. In fact, I bought this meal while I was in Albany, y'all. I can't seem to find real good meal over here in Savannah. So this is some good old plain cornmeal. It's a fine ground meal, and it's just the best. All right, so I'm gonna use my 1/2 cup measurer, and I'm gonna put about a 1/2 cup of, I'm using self-rising flour, that's all right. One's self-rising and one's plain, but that's all right because I'm adding a teaspoon of soda and a 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And I'm gonna need about a teaspoon of salt. So that looks about like a teaspoon. I hope it's not too much. So I'm just gonna mix that together. I'm gonna put my egg in. All right, so now I'm gonna probably add about a cup of buttermilk. It'll probably take for 2 cups of this, maybe a little bit more. After you get your hush puppies made, you want to let them sit a little bit because it'll swell up and all blend together, and it may turn out that you need a little bit more liquid. And I like a lot of onion. All right, so I'm gonna switch this to one of my neatest bowls in the world. This is actually a hush puppy bowl, y'all. So you want this pretty thick because you don't want, when you drop your hush puppy batter, you don't want it going every which way. So this is what that extra little bowl is for, y'all. It's for your water, because before I can drop a hush puppy in the pot, you have to dip your spoon in water, and when you drop that hush puppy in, it'll all just slide right out of that spoon. The space that you live in really affects the way you feel. So my first recommendation is start by updating your window treatments with Smith & Noble. Smith & Noble's beautiful handcrafted blinds, drapes, shades, and shutters are custom made just for you, and they offer different service options to fit your needs. To get started today, contact Smith & Noble to get my special limited time offer, 25% off on your window treatments, plus free design consultation. Create a space that you're gonna love. For details about my special offer, go to smithandnoble.com/Paula. That's smithandnoble.com/Paula, or call 1-800-659-3300. That's 1-800-659-3300. So let's talk about fish. Now, my family loves all kind of fish. But you know, I think my favorite fish is like freshwater fish, like brim and crappie and catfish and bass. I just love every fish that comes out of those ponds that we have in Southwest Georgia. So there's a good chance that I'll be cooking a catfish fillet. So that catfish fillet, I'll want to make sure it's salt and peppered real good. One of the secrets to a good piece of fish is the salt. You must make sure you salt that catfish and put your pepper on it. And then I sprinkle it with something like Old Bay. So Old Bay's got salt in it, so be careful though not to get your fish too salty. Because using the Old Bay will be like salting it twice, so you'll want to be careful. And on my fried fish, I really like more of a flour coating than I do meal. So I'll take like 4 parts of flour to 1 part meal, and I will mix those together. And naturally, I'm frying these in peanut oil, and I want to deep fry those, so I'll bring my cast iron pot of peanut oil up to about 350 degrees, and I'm gonna dredge that catfish real good in my flour and Alabama King cornmeal, and I'm gonna drop it into the fryer. And the worst thing that you can do to fish, y'all, is overcooking it. So you'll want to make sure that the fish has just lost that translucent look to it, and it won't take long depending on how thick your fish is. And there ain't nothing like sitting down to a plate of fried catfish, hush puppies, and cheese grits. I'm getting hungry, y'all. So I'm gonna go ahead and season my fish, and you wanna make sure when you're cooking fish that you got it good and salty. Because remember, this came out of fresh water, so it didn't have that salt water to, make it even more salty. So I'm gonna flip these over. This was a big old catfish, y'all. Okay, kiddos, so now we're ready to address the fish. Now, I sprinkled it with salt and pepper and a little Old Bay. And now my grandma, this is where we differ, y'all. My grandma would use straight meal, where my mother introduced flour into the mix. And I like that so much better. So I'm gonna actually use more flour than I do meal. And I'm just using an all-purpose meal, just like I made my hush puppies from, but I'm using self-rising flour, so it really doesn't matter. All right, so you just wanna mix that up real good. And then we're gonna dip our catfish fillets in that. Oh, you know what? I wanted to sprinkle this with a little buttermilk. By sprinkling it with a little buttermilk, it'll just help it stick. I think buttermilk kind of makes everything fried a little bit better, don't y'all? All right, so here we go. Into our mixture. And into the frying pan. You know what? I think I'm gonna cut these in 2, because like I said, that was a dadgum big catfish. All right, I need to check and see what temperature our grease is at. I like to fry at 350. I really probably should have had a bigger pot. I would feel better if I was cooking this in my Dutch oven, which is, and you know what? I may stick a few hush puppies in around where I got a little room. So I want to show y'all how that, see, that water makes that batter just fall right off. It's the greatest little trick. And I was telling y'all, I just love a little bit of tartar sauce with my hush puppies. So good. Delicious. Oh my gosh, it's delicious. And that little bit of seasoning that I put on it just really makes it pop. The space that you live in really affects the way you feel. So my first recommendation is start by updating your window treatments with Smith & Noble. Smith & Noble's beautiful handcrafted blinds, drapes, shades, and shutters are custom made just for you, and they offer different service options to fit your needs. To get started today, contact Smith & Noble to get my special limited time offer, 25% off on your window treatments, plus free design consultation. Create a space that you're gonna love. For details about my special offer, go to smithandnoble.com/Paula. That's smithandnoble.com/Paula, or call 1-800-659-3300. That's 1-800-659-3300.